As of the market close on Friday, May 1st, 2026, the Ondas Holdings Inc. stock price sits at $10.32, marking a solid intraday gain of 2.79% from its previous level. Since today is Saturday, May 2nd, the markets are currently closed, but the action we saw during the last session tells a much more complex story than a simple green candle might suggest. While the price ended higher, the stock fluctuated significantly between a low of $9.62 and a high of $10.56, showing the kind of 9.77% volatility that has become a trademark of this name. If you look at the raw data, it seems like a straightforward recovery, but the reality beneath the surface is that institutional activity is shifting in ways that the average retail trader isn't catching yet. Most people looking at Ondas Inc. see a company that has skyrocketed over 1,300% in the last year and assume the easy gains are over. They see a loss-making business and worry that the valuation has disconnected from the fundamentals. However, the expectation that this is just another speculative drone play is being challenged by a massive pivot into what leadership is calling layered ISR. By integrating stratospheric balloons from Worldview with their existing tactical drones and ground robotics, they are building a persistent surveillance net that doesn't really have a direct competitor at this scale. The market expects a simple hardware provider, but the reality is that Ondas is positioning itself as the underlying infrastructure for autonomous defense. This gap between the drone maker label and the autonomous systems integrator reality is where the long-term value is hiding. The trading volume on Friday hit over 35 million shares, which is substantial for a company with a market cap around $4.8 billion. This level of liquidity is exactly what attracts players using the Interactive Brokers trading platform, or those looking for sophisticated individual brokerage options. When you see volume rising alongside price, it generally points to a healthy accumulation phase rather than a blow-off top. We are seeing a lot of movement from people using investing sites to track the technical breakout above the $10.01 support level. If the stock can hold this ground, the next resistance at $10.34 becomes the pivot point for a much larger move toward the analyst consensus targets that sit closer to $19. It is worth noting that the broader tech sector has been experiencing some pressure, yet Ondas stock managed to decouple from the general malaise of the nasdaq during the last few hours of Friday's session. This relative strength is a signal that institutional money might be rotating out of some overextended names and into high-growth defense tech. Investors who use platforms like SoFi Invest or Robinhood app are often looking for these high-beta opportunities, but the smart money is paying attention to the $1.5 billion cash reserve the company has built up. This isn't just a survival fund, it's a war chest for further acquisitions. They've already picked up Mistral and Rotron, and the market is still trying to figure out how to model the revenue from these integrated units. The current narrative is heavily focused on the upcoming Q1 2026 earnings report scheduled for May 14th. Investors are anxious to see if the 600% revenue growth we saw in 2025 can be sustained, or if the integration of so many moving parts will lead to a messy quarter. If you are using a Fidelity mobile app to track your portfolio, you might notice that the volatility alerts are going off frequently for ONDS. This is because the stock is currently a battleground between shorts who believe the dilution has gone too far and bulls who see the $50 million revenue base as just the tip of the iceberg. The expectation is that the company will keep burning cash, but the reality might be a much faster path to profitability than the bears are willing to admit, especially with gross margins already expanding toward the 40% mark. Speaking of institutional movements, we've seen a significant uptick in interest from those who typically hold things like Apple stock or Nvidia stock, but are looking for a small-cap satellite that provides exponential upside. While many people stick to Schwab Intelligent Portfolios for their hands-off needs, the active traders are looking at the specific contract backlogs within the Ondas Autonomous Systems division. They are securing deals not just in the US, but with allied defense organizations globally. This global footprint is something that often gets overlooked by people who only see them as a domestic drone company. Comment below how many shares of Ondas Holdings you currently hold, or if you think the recent acquisitions will actually help them hit that $19 price target this year. When we look at the historical context, it's hard to ignore that Ondas has traded as high as 90 times sales in the past. Currently, they're sitting at around 10 times forward sales. While that is still a premium compared to the broader S&P 500, it's a massive discount to their own historical peaks. For someone using a Fidelity brokerage account or Interactive Brokers account, this represents a valuation reset that has finally aligned with the actual scaling of the business. We are no longer talking about a company with just a PowerPoint and a dream. We are talking about a firm with tens of millions in actual billings and a clear line of sight to a $100 million plus revenue run rate. The business model itself is split into two very distinct but complementary halves. You have Ondas Networks, which provides the private wireless connectivity for things like rail and utilities. This is the boring part of the business that provides a steady, high-margin foundation. Then you have the autonomous system side, which is the high-growth, high-glamour defense side. The integration of these two means that their drones aren't just flying units, they are connected nodes on a proprietary secure network. This is a massive competitive advantage that other drone startups simply don't have. They have to rely on third-party communication protocols, whereas Ondas owns the entire stack. For those who prefer a more managed approach through things like Fidelity mutual funds or Fidelity ETFs, you might find Ondas popping up in more specialized future of defense or robotics funds recently. The shift from a microcap to a mid-cap company is a critical phase where institutional ownership usually starts to dominate retail. We are seeing that transition happening in real time. The reality of the $1.5 billion cash position means that the risk of a going concern or immediate bankruptcy is essentially off the table. This provides a floor for the stock that wasn't there 6 months ago, even if the price swings remain violent. As we look toward the future, the main catalyst to watch is the integration of worldview. Stratospheric sensing is a massive market for homeland security and environmental monitoring. By providing a permanent eye in the sky that costs a fraction of a satellite and longer than a drone, Ondas is filling a gap in the ISR market that has been wide open for years. If they can successfully merge this high-altitude data with their low-altitude drone tactical data, they will have a software platform that is indispensable for modern border security. The expectation is that this will take years to develop, but the reality of their recent partnership agreements suggests we could see integrated solutions as early as the second half of this year. The risks, of course, are not insignificant. Dilution is the word every ONDS investor hates to hear, and the warrant liability on the balance sheet is a ghost that continues to haunt the per-share value. Even if the company grows 10 times over, if the share count also grows 10 times, the stock price stays flat. This is the tension that keeps many investors on the sidelines. However, with the current cash reserve, the need for further dilutive capital raises in 2026 seems low. This allows the growth in revenue to finally start reflecting in the earnings per share. For users of Robinhood Investments or SoFi trading platform, the focus should be on whether the company can convert its massive backlog into recognized revenue without further share issuance. If you are looking for investment help or exploring online investing, the key with a stock like this is position sizing. It's not the kind of thing you bet the whole house on, but it is the kind of name that can provide the alpha that outpaces the broader market. Whether you are using a Fidelity trading platform or the Robinhood stock trading app, the technicals are currently looking much more constructive than they did a month ago. The 52-week high of $15.28 is the primary target for the bulls, and a break above $10.10 would likely trigger a wave of short covering that could accelerate that move. In summary, the story of Ondas Holdings right now is one of a company that has successfully navigated the valley of death that claims most small-cap tech firms. They've raised the capital, they've made the acquisitions, and they've built a unique technological moat. The market is still treating them like a speculative bet, expecting failure or further dilution, but the reality is a fortified business with a massive cash pile and a growing list of government contracts. This contrast between these two perspectives is creating an opportunity for those who can stomach the intraday swings. As we wait for the May 14th earnings call, keep a close eye on the $10 level. If it holds, the transition from a drone stock to a defense powerhouse might happen much faster than anyone anticipates. The depth of their integration into the autonomous infrastructure suggests that Ondas isn't just a participant in the market, they are trying to become the standard. This kind of ambition usually leads to either total dominance or a very interesting acquisition by a larger prime contractor. Either way, the current price levels are proving to be a significant turning point in the company's trajectory. If you've been sitting on the sidelines, the recent technical strength combined with the fundamental floor of their cash reserves makes this a very different setup than it was a year ago. Keep your eyes on the volume and the institutional reports, as those will be the true indicators of where the smart money thinks this goes next.